So, hello everyone, welcome to Inside IM's YouTube channel. This session is aimed at giving you a roadmap of sorts for your CAT 2022 preparations. And before we dive right into the content, let me give you a small introduction about myself. My name is Vaidehi Sanadhya and I hail from Surat, Gujarat. I have got a 99.42 percentile in CAT 2021 and I'm currently a final year BCom student. We also have with us Aditya Doiphode, and Aditya, you can go forward with your introduction.
Yeah, sure, Vaidehi. Hi all. So I'm Aditya. So I've been born and brought up in Pune. I'm a 2020 grad in mechanical engineering from NIT Trichy. I have around 20 months of work experience, and I scored 99.95 percentile in CAT 2021. So let's get started, right? I think it's the time when a lot of CAT aspirants start their prep, and a lot of them have this question, what's the best time to start, and how do we go about it? Should we join a coaching or should we go towards self-study? So Vaidehi, what are your thoughts on this?
So, for me personally, I joined a coaching. I was a part of IMS, but I also believe that coaching is not imperative for CAT preparations, mainly because the purpose that coaching performs is that it gives you a structure for your schedule. And if you are mature enough and if you are confident enough that you can do that on your own, that I don't think coaching is imperative for this journey. But and I think you have self-prepared, so it will be good to know your thoughts too about this.
Yeah, so just to give a quick background, right? So basically, I did write CAT last year as well, and that time I had joined a coaching. I had joined Career Launchers classroom program, online one. And so last attempt wasn't the best due to some factors. I couldn't put in my 100%. So this time, as I already had a decently strong base from last year's coaching, this year I decided to go with self preparation. What I did was I joined like 2 to 3 different mock series, and basically not just the mock series. You have your topic tests, you have your sectional tests, and then you have mocks, right? So the goal was to just have enough practice material to be able to go through that. And I think the next question people would have, right? If you are doing self study, okay, you have your mocks and your sectional tests, but how do you get your fundamentals clear? How do you go about the concepts? So to that I would say there are a lot of free resources available, but you have to be careful and you have to be choosy about what you go ahead with. So for example, in quant I used I think there's this channel called Rudha Academy on YouTube, run by Ravi Prakash sir. So he's very fantastic. The way he explains concepts is very lucid, and that's something I use to support my quant prep to get the fundamentals cleared. And I think apart from that, why they can also tell how did she go about it apart from the coaching videos.
So, to be honest, that was the exact channel that I was going to talk about because that is the only material that I followed for the concept part of QA, and it has helped me a lot because the videos were really good and I can substantiate it with my performance because being a non-engineer, as it happens with most of the people, I was a little weaker at the quant section, but I went on to score a 99.67 in that, which is my highest in any of the mocks. And so yes, the Academy is one resource that I followed for my quant preparation. And the problem with resources is that there is not a shortage of resources. There are too many, so we get confused at what should be done. And therefore, I'll just suggest that choose one thing that works the best for you. As I chose the Academy because it works the best for me. So after that, I didn't used to go looking for other options, and I just followed that thoroughly. So that is something that the aspirants can do. And one question that I have for you is that when did you start your CAT preparation exactly? I mean, how many months did you give for it? And do you think the duration that you gave for the CAT preparation, was it too less? Was it too more? What did you think about it?
So, given this was not my first attempt, I did start slightly late around May to June period. But I think most people start around April when basically when the mock start, people
Yeah.
generally start their preparation. And there is no one set answer, how many months should you study? It's a person dependent thing. It depends on how comfortable you are with different sections in CAT, right? And for that, what I would recommend is give your first mock as soon as possible, because what happens is when you give your first mock you get at least a decent idea of where you stand. You get an idea of okay, right, I'm comfortable with VRC, I shouldn't need a lot of prep. But let's say quant, I don't know anything, so I have to start from ground up. So it will take time. So I think that will give you an idea in terms of when to start your prep. And just to go back on the free resources part, right? One tip I can give in terms of how do you manage, especially when you're doing self study, is you have a lot of resources, and what happens is people get overwhelmed by just the amount of resources they have, and they try to do everything and end up doing nothing in the end. So to avoid that, what I did was, for each section I just made an Excel sheet and I put in what all resources are available, what do they cover, and then I basically ranked them based on how good the material is, what suits me the best, and then I just stuck with the top 2 to 3 resources. So that is a tip you can kind of use if you are doing self study. uh, so
So
yeah.
I'm sure that after the CAT preparation, Excel sheets are going to become your best friend because you will be using them for everything, right from your preparation schedule to your mock strategy to your mock analysis. So that is something. Even I started my CAT preparation in April when the mock season started, because that is when you understand that, oh yes, we are going for this exam and we need to do well. And that is when I started, and I had a fair 8 months to me, and I think that time was enough for me. But as you said,
Mhm.
I have seen people who have prepared for 1-2 years as well, right from when they joined a graduation school, and some have cracked it in 2 months as well. So it totally depends on you, but yeah, that is the timeline that I used to follow.
Yep. So let's say we have two different people on the call, right? I am someone who did CAT preparation while I was working, and you are in college, right? So you can start by elaborating how was it preparing for CAT with your college CATs and everything, and how did you manage your time in terms of that?
So yes, this is a very important question, because when you give the CAT examination, that is the same time that you'll have your semester 5 examinations. And it becomes a little difficult to manage them both. But it is important to understand here that CAT is not something that you need a full-time preparation for. I mean, if you are good in managing your time, so what I did was I used to set little targets for myself on a daily basis,
Mhm.
and on a weekly basis. So I used to sit on Sunday, make an Excel sheet again about what all I'll do in the next coming week. And if I know that I have an exam in the coming week, then I would make sure that I set up my schedule accordingly.
Mhm.
And the only hack here that worked for me was that I knew that QA needs my maximum time. So I made sure that I'm doing it on a daily basis. And even if I have an exam the next day, I am not missing my QA prep. So I think scheduling is the only key to coping up with your college exams and with your college activities. And the activities that you do in college, even they are important for your overall profile and the months that will follow after CAT. So it is important that you don't neglect that as well, and you manage your time accordingly. So you were working, right? So it has been difficult for you too as well. So what was your experience like?
Yeah. So I work in consulting basically, right? I work at Z's Associates. So I think anyone who works in jobs which take up more than 8 to 10 hours of your day, you might feel that CAT is not manageable, or it becomes very difficult to manage. And it's not just the time aspect. Working for 8 to 10 hours on a daily basis really drains you, right? You don't have the mental bandwidth after that to sit and study, right? So like the thing that worked for me was, I wasn't too stringent on myself in terms of daily targets. I did have daily targets, but what I did was looked at it in terms of a block. Let's say as they mentioned, right, quant is something that takes most of your time because we have a lot of theory to cover, right? So quant was something that I scheduled on weekends when I had time, and on weekdays I used to just have a thing that I'll do these many LRDI sets, I'll go to these many RCs, etc. So what helps is, let's say you have, instead of saying, okay, I'll do 2 LRDI sets every day, you can say I'll do 10 LRDI sets in the weekdays, right? The 5 days. And let's say one day was really bad at work, you had too much work, you just don't have the capacity to continue on that day. It's fine. Just take up those remaining sets, split them on the other days. So basically what helps is being a little dynamic and having those buffers for yourself, right? If you're being too stringent on yourself, what will happen is, if you miss even a single target, you'll feel like, okay, I've already screwed it up, what is the point of continuing? And that could again take up a few more of your days just to get back to your normal routine. So I think that is something that can help working professionals. So yeah.
So it is fascinating to see that two people are here on this call, and we both have such differing opinions about our preparations, and we still have managed we both have managed to get a decent, not a decent, you have got a fantastic percentile. But yeah, it is fascinating, and this is important to understand, right? That not every person will have a similar journey, and we sometimes get overwhelmed by seeing that, oh, that person used to study for these hours and we are not doing that, and we start feeling guilty. But it's important to understand that everything works differently for everyone. So yeah,
Yeah, that's definitely. Then I would say that basically, even even you're watching this video, we both are telling you something, right? And you'll watch such many other videos. So always take the advice from people, try it out for yourself, but only stick to what works for you. Don't try to force fit something into your strategy just because someone who has done well in the exam is saying so. So yeah. Yeah. So let's move on from this. And so Vaidhi, as Abhishek mentioned, right, you have a great QA percentile. So going on that, what was your strongest and weakest section when you started your prep, and how do you go about those sections?
so surprisingly, QA was my weakest section, and it is not that in the end, it was my strongest. Even a week before CAT, I wasn't getting a great score in QA, and I went into CAT with the mindset that I will just be able to clear the cutoff. And surprisingly, QA turned out to be my sectional score. And the only reason and the only key to that would be my consistency, because since I started my preparation in April, there wasn't even a single day in the 8 months duration when I didn't practice QA. I mean, I used to do everything that the mentors used to tell me, that prepare a notebook, write down the formulas, write down the concepts, and I knew that I have to work the most for it because it is a section that I suffer in. And so QA was my weakest, as I mentioned, and it is where I put my major efforts in. And my preparation strategy was mostly that until June or mid July, I made sure that I'm done with all the concepts, so that post that I can focus on the practice part. And yeah, that is the only thing that I did, and I made sure that I'm doing it on a daily basis. So being an engineer, people think that QA is you might be naturally strong at QA. So what was your take about it?
So to be honest, I think it's a stereotype, right? So I am not someone who loves numbers. That's what people think about engineers, right? And that's why I am Calcutta was the interview I dreaded the most because they ask math and all. So in that way, I wouldn't say quant was my strongest subject to start with. But having gone through JE and having studied those topics in 12th, there was some level of comfort in that. But again, given you haven't done those topics like 4 years doing engineering, and maybe even like 1 or 2 years after your work you have to pretty much start from scratch. You have to go through the theory, you have to build that foundation again. And I think in terms of just the vastness of syllabus, QA stands at the top, right? It's a lot to cover before you can actually start scoring well in your mocks and everything. So I wouldn't say QA was my strongest subject, but it wasn't my weakest either. So I think my weakest subject, for the sole reason that I was scared of it, was LRDI, because in QA and VRC you have that luxury of gradualness, because if you miss a question, that's when you are missing 3 marks. If you get a question wrong, you're missing out on 4 marks. But in LRDI, it's blocks of question, right? It's either 4 questions, 6 questions, so it can be as big as 6 questions, right? So if you mess up that entire set, your exam is pretty much done. So that was one fear that I had in my mind from the start in terms of LRDI. So for LRD, again, this is the thing, right? There's not a lot of solid theory that you can cover. So it's all about practice. So LRD is just exposing yourself to as many different sets as possible, and just practicing it enough to actually hone your problem solving skills. So if you are thinking that you can just start LRDI 1 or 2 months before CAT, it might be very difficult for you to achieve that. So it has to be done over a long period of time and regularly to actually rewire your brain to see those connections and make that set work. In terms of my strongest section, I think VRC was my strongest section. It did come naturally to me right from the school. So in terms of so I think, yeah, that was my strong and weakest sections per se.
So VRC was my strongest section too from the beginning. in the exam, I didn't get the percent that I was expecting, mainly because I had to change my strategy at the last moment, looking at the paper that was there. But
Mhm.
yeah, it is the section that I enjoyed the most. I mean, even if I had to read such long passages, I didn't get bored of it. It is something that I really enjoyed. And it happens that when you know a section is your strongest part, you tend to you focus less on it, and that is a mistake that I did in the between, that I didn't focus too much on VARC, and that was evident in my mock scores as well. So it is important that for VARC you are reading consistently, because no matter how cliched it sounds, but reading does help, because VARC is all about comprehension, right? And if you're not reading from varied sources, then you would not be able to do good in it. So because it is important to know the basic jargons of every topic, say astronomy, history, because every topic might come in the CAT. So yeah, to read consistently is one thing, and the other would be to practice RCs. So from June or July, I made sure that I'm solving at least 2 or 3 RCs every day,
Mhm.
because it is something. So RCs is about the way you read, the way you comprehend the passage. So it is important that you develop that slowly and gradually through your preparation. So yeah, that is how I went about it. And now that we're on the preparation part, I think we should take up a question from the chats so that we can make it a more interactive session.
Yeah,
So
sure.
I
Yes, so
see.
yeah, go
Yeah,
ahead.
you can go forward with it.
Yeah, so I see a question, that someone has registered in online coaching and due to tight schedule, they're not able to keep up with the classes, right? So I think the best way to go about it is, weekends, because there is nothing you can do if you have a tight schedule. Either you're a working professional or you are a student who has a lot on their plate. The only place where you can catch up is weekends. So you have to sit on the weekends and you have to put in those extras to actually catch up. But I would say don't stress too much on the catching up part. Maybe focus on the major topics, for example, right? If you're talking about quant, for example, like arithmetic forms a huge chunk of quant, right? So maybe start with arithmetic, and then move on to other topics gradually. So yeah, I say don't go into the FOMO mode, but yeah, you have to catch up on weekends. There is no alternative to that. What are your views on this, Vaidehi?
Yeah, that's true. I mean, see, coachings do provide mentoring on a group basis. So it is not important that these schedule that they have kept for the coaching might do well with you too. So it is important to understand that one one of your friend might be able to do it well, but you might not be able to catch up at the same speed. So yes, it is important to first understand that it is okay to face such things, because we tend to overburden ourselves with thoughts that I'm not able to catch up, maybe I'm not as good as others are, and that is one thing that causes a problem. So yeah, just as Aditya said, try to use weekends to just make sure that you are actually adding something to your knowledge every day, and you might be good to go there.
Yep. All right. So shall we move on to the next section?
Yeah, so the I think that mocks play a huge role in our preparation, right? So it is important that whenever we are talking about CAT preparations, we need to focus on the importance of mocks and reiterate the fact that without mocks, I don't think that CAT preparation would become very easy. I mean, mocks are an integral part of the CAT, right? So Aditya, how many mocks did you take, and what was your timeline? That how did you bifurcate it between the months of preparation?
Okay, so to be honest, I didn't have a very structured bifurcation. I started, as I said, slightly late. So my first focus was to, get done with the basics and then move on to sectionals and mocks. But in terms of mocks, I think I gave some around 15 to 20 mocks. But I would recommend, if you have more time, definitely go for more mocks. But I did compensate less number of mocks with more sectional tests, because as I said, when you're working professional, you don't have that luxury, right? So you can kind of supplement those mocks with sectional tests at some points. But why I feel mocks are pretty important is there are two factors, right? First is that CAT is a very unpredictable exam. When you go to the CAT exam hall, you would realize that uh, every year they manage to put some surprise, whether it's in terms of difficulty or number of questions or the pattern, right? So what mocks do, it giving those at least 20 odd mocks, right? It helps you just expose yourself to different kind of variety or combinations of questions. So I was I'm watching some videos of these cat mentors who have been designing mock series for a long time, and that's what they say, right? Mocks are important because they'll give you all combinations, right? Let's say 1 year your LRDI was, let's say, very LR heavy, right? Your VRC was RC is very lengthy. So how would you practice for those if you don't know they're going to come? That's through mocks. That's how you get exposed to different kinds of papers, and that's how you prepare for surprises, at least to a certain extent. And second place where mocks help you a lot is to build that mental stamina for to sit for 2 hours and go through different sections, right? And another part where mocks are very important is, I think, your exam taking strategy, or how do you approach each section and how do you make the best use of those 40 odd minutes per section. I think whether you can talk a bit more about how did you utilize those 40 odd minutes, and how did you experiment, if at all, over time to come to a final strategy.
So again, as you said, the 2 hours part is relatively easier than the 3 hours part, I must say, because sitting for 3 hours, and that is when the mocks used to become very important, because it is not easy to sit for 3 hours straight and then give your best in the QA section, which comes at the last. So yes, mocks are very important in that case. And mocks, yes, they give you the freedom to try out different strategies, as Aditya mentioned. Okay, in my VRC part, I always used to experiment her mock में, like कभी मैं RC से start करती थी, कभी मैं VA से start करती थी, and after trying out all the possible combinations, I made sure, मेरे को पता चला कि doing 3 RCs first or doing 4 RCs first and then leaving one for the end is what works the best for me. Because when you read consistently for the 3 RCs that you're solving, it becomes too much reading heavy. And at that part, VA comes in handy to just to be kind of a pause in the middle. So it helps you in your test taking. So yeah, I experimented a lot in all the 3 sections, and I think it is important. मतलब हमें लगता है कि why to risk the marks in the mocks and why to experiment if something is working for us, but you don't know, a different strategy might work better for you. So it is important to take the mocks as a practice session and not focus too much on these scores, because वहां पे अगर एक्सपेरिमेंट नहीं करोगे तो यू वोंट नो कि एग्जाम में सबसे अच्छा क्या होगा तुम्हारे लिए. So yeah, I would say that experimenting in mocks is important. And also so I also believe that CAT is more an exam of calmness, of strategy and time management than aptitude. I mean, aptitude is important, but if you don't have calmness and if you don't have a perfect strategy in hand, then your aptitude won't help you that much. So yeah, I know कि mocks के बारे में people talk a lot, but yes, they are very important. इसलिए ही the people focus so much on the mocks part of the CAT preparation.
Yeah, just to add on to that, right? The part where you mentioned that why mocks are important and why is it important to stay calm during your exam. So if you look at it, anyone who has given a few mocks would know that after the exam, you're always like, this question is very easy. Why didn't I do this during the exam, right? Or this was so obvious. Why couldn't I do this during the exam? And that is what you're trying to do by giving mocks. That is what you're trying to achieve. If something is easy, you should do it, right? If the remaining whatever 2 lakh people are doing it and you're missing it out, then there's something wrong in your preparation strategy or your test taking. So that is what mocks help you figure out. And the second thing that way they mentioned, right? People tend to focus too much on mock scores, right? That too from the very start. I would say in the start, or at least in your initial at least 10 odd mocks, don't focus too much on the score. Mocks are an instrument for you to understand what are you good at and what you're not the best at, right? And then to work on those. And continuing on the same point, another mistake that aspirants make is some of them take too many mocks back to back. So that kind of defeats the purpose of the mock. So let's say you took a mock exam and you missed out on very easy questions in geometry, and that was because maybe your fundamentals aren't clear. Then you should give yourself the time of at least 3 to 4 days to go back to the fundamentals, study them, practice questions of geometry, and then attempt the next mock. Because that is what you're doing, right? You are identifying your weaknesses, you're working on them, and then you're again retaking the next mock. If you're just giving mocks one after the other, you're not really achieving the purpose of whatever the mocks are. Now, now that I said that, you have to identify your weaknesses, or you have to get the most out of the mocks. This is where, analyzing the mock becomes very important. So Vaidehi, how did you go about your, taking the mock and then analyzing it? Did you do it on the same day, next day, and what was your strategy for that?
So, a lot of the aspirants do this, including myself, that we don't focus too much on analyzing the mocks. And fortunately, it is something that I realized at a very early stage. क्योंकि क्या होता है कि if you are giving a mock and then you are not analyzing it, then the basic purpose of the mock is not getting fulfilled, because you don't know कि कहाँ तुमने question selection में mistake करी, कहाँ तुमने you took up a difficult question which you could have let go of. So it is something that you understand only when you analyze the mocks. And again, this is where Excel sheets come into picture. So what I used to do is I prepared an Excel sheet of and every mock that I gave, after the analyzation part came out, I used to bifurcate it कि जैसे QA में ज्योमेट्री में से कितने क्वेश्चंस थे, कितने मैंने अटेम्प्ट करे, कितने मैंने करेक्ट हुए, एंड उसके हिसाब से मैं देखती थी कि मैं कौन से पार्ट को अच्छे से कर पा रही हूँ एंड कौन से पार्ट को नहीं. So that was my strategy for it, to actually understand where did I make the mistakes. So to identify the mistakes. Second is to understand why did you make those mistakes. Was it a question that was actually difficult, या फिर was it a question that you should have let go of, नहीं करना चाहिए था attempt. Third is to the time that you take for each question. So is it a question जो तुम relatively कम time में कर सकते थे, or did you take up too much time in that? So those were the few things that I used to think about after giving the mock. And it also helped me, this analyzation part also helped me कि before the next mock I could make sure कि मुझे किस चीज के ऊपर what would be the one section that I would focus on in the next mock. So इसके लिए जैसे QA है, and I know that geometry is something that I was not very good in my last mock. So मैं क्या करती थी कि just a day before my mock, I also used to use these inside IIM के mini mock series. So what happens is, जैसे मुझे पता है कि QA में geometry is a part that I need to focus on in the next mock. So you cannot, geometry is a huge concept, right? उसमें इतने सारे अंदर formulas हैं, concepts हैं, that you cannot revise everything in a day. So वहाँ पे क्या होता था कि the mini mock series contains 10 questions, 18 minutes का time होता है, and so it helped me revise अच्छे से, because just a day before mock, that is the perfect thing that you can do, because you get some 10 questions, you can see कि कितने question तुम answer कर पा रहे हो, whether you are actually improved in this section last mock के comparison में. So yeah, that is something that I used to do, from the analyzing part, and then this was my strategy and forming my strategy for the next mock.
Yep. Just to add on to that, right? So where they, put it very properly that, why mocks are so important. And I think you would realize this, whatever mock test you join, even they put a lot of emphasis on the analysis part. That's why they give you those analytics. They give you a bifurcation of what questions were easy, what were easy, medium, what were difficult. And they also give bifurcation of, how much time you spend, and things like that. And another thing that I would urge you to do is watch the video explanations. You don't need to watch it for every question or for every section, depending on your comfort level, but do watch it, because especially for something like VRC, where it is the question, there is no like basic, it's not math, right? You can't say 2 plus 2 is 4. There has been some thought in the author's mind, and that's something you have to identify. So a lot of people are not comfortable with that. So video solutions help. They tell you that where did you go wrong, what point did you miss, right? And video solutions also help you identify that let's say there was this extremely difficult set in LRD and you tried to attempt it. Then the mentor or whoever that person who's explaining will tell you, right, these were the points using which you could have identified that this set should be left alone, right? Let's say the set is too lengthy, or you have each question needs additional calculations or additional analysis, so it makes sense not to attempt that set. So this all information is something that you can decipher from your mock analysis, right? And I think we can go into depth for each section, that how mocks help in each section, but this is not covered in the scope of this video. We have to cover a few more things. So but for that, inside IIM is going to come up with a roadmap CAT series, and I think that's starting from the next week. So we'll put a link in the description box, and you can check it out. We'll go into details in each section and many more things. So yeah, definitely check that out. So yeah, that was about mocks. So but yeah, mocks are something that do affect your mental state, right? Whatever you say, even if you say that this is just for experimentation, this is just for analyzing, but getting that very low score in some mock, like let's say having getting 90-95 consistently, one mock is suddenly 70, that does affect you. So Vaidhi, how did you deal with such instances whenever you had a really bad mock and that affected your morale?
So I would say that this is something that happens with everyone, right? I mean, firstly, it is important to understand that no matter like even a person who has went on to score 100 percentile in CAT, they might have a bad mock day, क्योंकि ये सबके साथ होता है. And सबसे important यही है कि till realize that you are not the only one. This happens with everyone. And I would like to integrate this question with a question that we have had in the chat section. Okay, how to get your doubt solved when you are not enrolled in any coaching. So the answer to both of these questions is the same. Okay, what worked for me is I I made some friends in the CAT preparation process, and to talk to them, to get your questions solved with them, to be in interaction with people who are going through the same process that you are. It becomes very important. क्योंकि जैसे I have had a bad mock and I'm very disheartened because of it. So in that time, to talk to your friends who also have given a mock, who also have had the similar days, it really helps. So that is what I used to do. कि अगर मेरा mock अच्छा नहीं हुआ है, तो I used to either go out, have some fun, and remind myself that it is okay, it happens with everyone. And also to have that mindset कि though it has happened, you cannot just get disheartened and let go of the preparation. You cannot do that. You have to have that mindset कि जो mistakes करी है, you have to learn from them. And when I try to be an optimistic person. So when I'm in that optimistic zone, I try to tell myself कि a bad mocks gives you more opportunities to improve yourself. So that was my mindset for tackling this situation. What about you, Aditya? I mean, I'm sure कि even so people can say 99.95 percentile होने के बाद भी people like you do have bad mock days, right? So
Yeah,
how
yeah,
did
yeah.
you tackle them?
Yeah, you do have bad mocks, and you have to understand that that's not a function of your preparation. First of all, your preparation is going on, right? And it's not a function of that, because as I said, mocks are a way to expose you to different kind of situations. So let's say, for example, I was strong in arithmetic, and I just got by with geometry and maybe number systems, etc., right? So if there is a mock in which quant was very focused, heavy focused on geometry and number systems, obviously I'm going to do bad in that mock, right? But then I have to understand that this is not something that will happen definitely on CAT day, right? You take that as learning, you go back to the mock and see. So what I did in such cases was I went back and I saw, were there any easy questions or easy medium questions in geometry and let's say number systems that I was missing out, or did I get wrong? So that gave me an opportunity to go back and brush up my fundamentals, right? So mocks are basically, again, as way they put very nicely, right? Look at it in a positive way and think, this gives me a good chance to fill the major blocks or major gaps in my preparation. And on the other point, that it is very important to have a good support system, right? Whether you're a student or working professional, because CAT is one part of your life, you also have other things going on, right? You have your semester exams going on, you have your work going on. Work might be hectic, so it becomes important to have a support system, especially if you have people who are writing CAT, so they will be the they'll be able to relate to that the most. So definitely recommended to have such people in your life. But yeah, uh, okay, so did you have lowest point in your entire preparation where you felt like just dropping the towel and giving up? Did it happen to you?
So, yes, I mean, I had a point in my preparation phase where, not giving up, because I made sure that I don't reach that position. But yeah, it happened to me that it was a series of mocks that were not going well. I mean, I was constantly scoring in the range of about something around 65 percentile. And it was something very disheartening for me, because one or two mocks before that, I was scoring in the 85%, 85 around 85 percentile. So that drop did dishearten me a lot. And this I think this too happens with almost all of the aspirants, because sometimes or the other time you might get distracted, and no matter kitne tum discipline रहने की try करो, you sometimes get distracted and these things happen. So it was not an easy process. And even when I realized कि हाँ, why is this happening, because somewhere right, why is this happening, that you are not being consistent, that you are not preparing very properly. So I identified the problem, and uske baad bhi you won't get instant results. I mean, if you are not if you are not scoring very nicely in VRC, then अगर तुम reading start करोगे, then instant results नहीं आएंगे. It will take its own time. So yeah, I coped up with it by being consistent. उसके बाद से consistency is the key to cracking the CAT, क्योंकि अगर तुमने अपनी आइडेंटिफाई कर ली प्रॉब्लम, उसके बाद भी यू विल हैव टू वर्क ऑन दैट फॉर अ फ्यू वीक्स, एंड उसके बाद ही जाके यू विल सी कि हाँ, यू आर अगेन स्कोरिंग गुड इन द मॉक्स. So yeah, that was one moment that I was very disheartened in, but I made sure that I learned from that, and then uske baad se everything was good. So did you face any such moments as well?
Yeah, I think everyone I think everyone does. You have that odd 65-70 percentile in the middle, and you're just like, what went wrong, and am I really that bad? But this is a good time to just point it out that in general there is some correlation between your CAT percentile and mock scores, obviously, but don't try to make some direct comparisons. Don't say that if I'm scoring this much in mocks, I'm going to score this much in CAT. Try not to do that. And most probably, okay, you'll score better in CAT as compared to mocks, for the simple reason that the people who are giving mocks regularly are the pool of serious aspirants, right? So your percentile has been calculated out of those 20-30,000 serious aspirants, so obviously it's going to be on the slightly on the lower end. But when you are against 2 lakh odd people who haven't prepared, matlab, huge chunk of that hasn't prepared very well, right? So your percentile will go up. But again, don't bank too much on it that ठीक है mocks में 70 आ रहे, I'll score 99. No, that won't happen. But yeah, do keep it in mind. There is no like cut to cut correlation between mock scores and your actual CAT exam.
Okay, so Aditya, I have a question. We have a question in the chat. When should one start giving mocks? So what is your answer to that?
As I said, right, as early as possible, to be honest. Like give the first mock. Let's say you want to you're starting your preparation now. Let's say you're starting the preparation tomorrow. Give your first mock tomorrow. What that will help with is, again, as I said, to identify where you stand and how comfortable are you with the pattern of the exam, with the questions and the general aptitude, right? So give your first mock as soon as possible. And I think one thing that people do, and I think I did this during my last year, is you wait, you say that I'm gonna cover this much syllabus, only then I'm gonna start giving mocks. Don't do that, because mocks are more than that. Because for example, LRD and VRC aren't very theory driven, so you have to keep giving mocks even if your quant syllabus isn't finished. Quant will take some time to finish on its own, so don't keep your mocks pending till you get there, and try to be consistent with mocks. There is a reason that coachings have those mocks every weekend, so try to stick to that. So that's all I would say.
Yeah, one more thing that aspirants do is that once they have had a bad mock, they think कि नहीं, अब मैं थोड़े time इतना practice करूंगा and उसके बाद ही I'll go and give another mock. So that is also one thing that one should not do. कि even if you are not getting a good score, just another mock. Like, don't focus too much on these scores, and just focus कि with every mock you will at least understand more about what preparations, what strategy works the best for you, and you'll get to know a lot about yourself. So yeah, start, as Aditya said, start as fast as you could, and just don't burden yourselves too much with the scores that you're getting in those mocks.
Yep. So I think apart from coming from mocks, as you mentioned, one important element is just to be calm during the exams. So how does one, I know there's no definite answer to this, but how do you try and stay calm during the actual DD, right? What did you do to help achieve that?
So I have a pretty great experience to substantiate this with, because in this year's DILR section, it so happened that in the initial 20 minutes, I couldn't solve even a single question. I mean, not even one single question. And if in that moment I would have given into the pressure that was building up, I would have lost my chance because, in 20 minutes, you cannot do much. You can just
Yeah.
try to, solve, identify the questions that are easy, relatively easily solvable, and you just go ahead. But again, ye tabhi ho sakta hai if you are calm. And what I did there was I sat for a minute, I closed my eyes, I drank some water, and ये सब made up लगता है but नहीं है, because in that moment I just had two options. One, either to let go of the chance this year and appear again next year, or to try to keep myself calm, and उसके बाद I to go on with the next 20 minutes and make the best use of it. So that is what I did. And yeah, so उसके बाद 20 minutes में I could solve a decent number of questions, and I could clear the sectional cutoffs. At least I got a 90 plus percentile. So yeah, it happened with me too. And no, so how can one maintain the composure is a very important question, right? And uske liye one thing is कि I would say that it comes a bit naturally to me because I'm a huge MS Dhoni fan. Just kidding. I have seen inspiration from him, but yeah, what you can do is just again, as I said, just remind yourself that this also happens with everything that you are going through. Most of the other aspirants are going through as well. So it is important to just say this to yourself again and again, because this is not something which you will understand instantly. It is something that you will have to remind yourself about. And yeah, other than this, it is also important to not pressurize yourself so much. So uh, it is important to understand that sometimes the videos that you see on YouTube or the interviews that you see of aspirants who have scored good, you will sometimes see that we were very consistent with our preparation. We were preparing for 6 hours consistently for 6 months. So see, it is not important to do that. I mean, if that 20 minutes break between your preparations gives you happiness, then you have to stop feeling guilty about taking that break. It is important to do things which enjoy you. I'm not saying कि रोज party में जाना चाहिए, not at all, but it is important to understand that even if you do, then instead of feeling guilty about it, you should try to think कि इसको better कैसे कर सकते हैं. So that is something that I used to do was कि between my preparation, when I am feeling कि नहीं अब थोड़ा I need to give myself a break and it is getting too stressful for me. So उस time पे I used to go and watch an episode of Friends. That 20-minute break really used to rejuvenate me. So yeah, that is something that I used to do.
Yep, just adding on to Vaidehi's experience, right? So that's very true, because it's almost an year's worth of preparation which you have to show on those 2 hours on the D-Day, right? So it can be immense pressure. But if you go in thinking, this is the be all and end all of my career and my life, then mostly you will panic and you'll fail. So one thing is to treat this as just another exam. And I know it's way easier said than done. We all have been there and we all face that immense pressure. But what I did and what worked for me was go in there with nothing to lose attitude. Just try to get into the zone, and maybe what would help with that is having a routine before you start your exam, like whatever. So the thing is, during the actual CAT exam, you have 1 hour. You have to sit before the screen in the actual exam center, right? So yeah, in terms of when you are there, have a routine. Anything, hum a song or have a little speech which you give yourself. Whatever helps you get into zone, and that will really help you. Right.
So pep talks are important, right?
Pep talks, yeah, pep talks. All right. I think we are done with the right. Or do we have anything else to cover today?
Not as such. Just I would like to say in the end that I would like to say two things. First, CAT doesn't to be a perfect candidate for the exam. I mean, you are, people do make mistakes and you can make them too. Just make sure that you don't get disheartened because of them. And consistency is the key, as we both mentioned, that it is important to be consistent. And also, I would say that enjoy the process, because no matter how cliched it sounds, but once you will be done with this entire process, you are going to miss the entire preparation phase. I mean, I know this because I do too. I miss, giving mocks every week and analyzing them, and the stressful situation that I was in. I mean, of course, it was sometimes a hell for me at that moment, but yeah, I do miss that right now. So yeah, just make sure that you're enjoying the process, and all the best. I mean, Aditya, what would you like to say to the aspirants? Just one advice that you would like to give to the
I think
aspirants.
it's same as you, right? It's an exam, right? It's a more of a war than a battle. Like, don't get disheartened if your mocks go bad. Everyone goes through that. So try to have positive attitude and have a good support system that will take you through it. One just final session for mocks is that once you get your final slot for the exam, try and give your mocks within that particular time period. And I think so I had my slot in the evening, which helped me because I'm not a morning person. But let's say if I had a morning slot, what I would have done is I would have woken up at the time I was going to wake up for the actual CAT exam, right? So if you have a slot from 9:30, for example, don't wake up at 8:30 and sit for the mock. If you are going to wake up at 6:30 on the actual CAT day, try to do that at least for a month, so your body and brain gets used to that. So that will be like final takeaway thoughts. But I think there's a lot of time for that, so we can revisit this again. So I know we haven't been able to cover sections in depth today. Particular section like LRDI preparation strategy or attempt strategy. So the motive of this webinar was to cover it on an overall level, to give idea of how CAT is, what are the pitfalls to avoid, what are things you should do. So we will be covering each section in detail and many more things in the upcoming roadmap series by Inside IM. So we have put the link in the description. You can go and check it out. And do follow Inside IM on all the social media handles. You'll get regular updates of everything CAT and MBA. So I think, yeah, that's all from our end. So all the best. Start your